You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
And I believe we're here Thursday night, Overgrow the Radio, Denver, Colorado. Thanks for joining us. I got to take just a quick minute to welcome our newest producer to our family. We've been through the gamut of producers here in the last couple months. Unfortunately, Jason had to take a hiatus and go back to his family for a bit. He'll be back to join us, though. We'll put him back to work when he gets back in town. Sam moved out here. We've had him on the show briefly a couple times. He's a friend of mine from out east. He's going to college and decided he wanted to be a producer. So welcome, Sam. Good to have you. I didn't really give you a mic. I'm sorry, man. So if anyone listened to the lyrics of the song coming into the show tonight, it talked about one day we'll all be free. And as a lot of our listeners know, in at least 3 states this year, we have a chance to free cannabis. We've got a vote here on Amendment 64. And that being said, I've got a little rant tonight as I rub my forehead. I watched Prop 19 a couple of years ago pretty closely, and it really, in my mind, long story short, what killed Prop 19 is it came down to the infighting. I, unfortunately, have not been innocent in this infighting here in Colorado. What is happening here really goes against what I do, what I try to do anyway, with Overgrow the Government, Overgrow the Radio, and everything I do in life. You know, I founded, I guess about 3 years ago now, I founded a little group called Overgrow the Government, and we go out to D.C., we protest twice a year, we've talked about it, we're going to talk about it later in the show. And one of our main pillars, you know, I was really lucky in the first protest. You know, I put a lot of effort into it, and I got some really awesome people that came out and spoke. Jason Love from here in Denver, Craig Baresh from the West Coast, Rebecca Forbes down in Carolina. You know, all these folks that had been in the industry far longer than me. I was very much a newbie at the time. And we all came together, and a funny thing happened when we went to D.C. We all really gelled, and we spent that first night in a hotel in our little planning meeting just becoming one big family. And, you know, I got on a plane after the rally on my way home. You know, it was just a haze the whole time we were there, just smoke and fun and friends. And I was really thinking on my plane ride home, you know, how incredible it was that we came from all corners of the country and Canada and even overseas, and we made this connection. And I knew right then that the key to Overgrow was not only to bring these awesome people on that I had met, but to promote unity. Unity is something, in my opinion anyway, that has to play into every aspect of your life. If you're not united in whatever it is you stand for, you will fall. I mean, like the old saying, you know, united you stand, divided you fall. I guess, you know, I've kind of played this 64 thing out a little bit, and I'm really tired of addressing it, to be honest. I took it a little personally here recently because, you know, a lot of these folks that we're combating with on this issue right now, I consider to be good friends. You know, one of them is actually hosting a debate in the Springs tonight. And honestly, as much as I would love to be there if I didn't have a radio show, I don't know if I would be welcome. You know, and that's not, when I got into activism here in Colorado, that is not at all what I set out to do or what I set out to do in anything with activism. Any negativity that comes into play, whether it's the infighting or bashing or name calling or whatever the case may be, is just really counterproductive. And I guess, you know, I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to talk about that because it's essential. I mean, let's keep in mind, and I'm not going to get too engulfed in 64, but, you know, it's not perfect. And I'll say this time and time again. I was a no vote until like a month and a half ago. The way that I see it, you know, the vagueness. I'm not happy with the vagueness. That was the thing holding me back. But what we have to realize is nothing's ever going to be perfect. There's never going to be any law that is passed in our country that is perfect the way it's written. With that being said, there is always room to correct laws once they're passed. If anyone remembers, we had 1284. Now, granted, with 1284, a lot of us didn't really get as proactive as we should have, and in my opinion anyway, we got over-regulated. I do believe that the regulation was good, but it is what it is. That being said, it's very important, I guess on a closing note to get on with important stuff, it's very important no matter how much we fight over the next month and argue and debate, once November comes and goes, guys, we have got to stand together. 64, it looks like it's going to pass whether the no people like it or not. The momentum is only growing stronger. I mean, we've got law enforcement endorsing it. We've got all kinds of people jumping on board. So, that being said, once it does pass, in order to come back with a 1284, because that's inevitable, we're going to have another bill follow with more precise rules that are going to address a lot of the issues that these folks are claiming, the first bill addresses, which it doesn't. So once that happens, we're going to need everyone to stand shoulder and shoulder again. And not to sound too much like a peace-loving hippie, but hug it out and make up. We've got a bigger picture here to fight for. If we spend our time bickering amongst ourselves, we're going to go nowhere but backwards. All I ask, guys, is let's talk to each other. Let's move this forward and let's get stuff done. All right, Sam, now we're going to do news. I threw my producer off. He's a little nervous over there, I can tell. We got a big guest coming up. We're going to talk in a few minutes with Lester Grinspoon, but I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just perusing through the news real quick. I've been keeping an eye on this initiative watch that comes out every week from stopthedrugwar.org. Great website. Check it out. It's pretty much where I get a lot of my cannabis news, if you will. So in LA, we've got the ban, and they're going to vote in the next election on whether to lift that ban on dispensaries. And just like everywhere else, like here in Colorado, our DAs can't get along. Apparently one DA is opposing it, and they have another DA who's right there supporting it. So as always, California, your politicians and lawmakers and federal type folks are a little backwards sometimes. I won't say the people of California are, because I love them to death. But yeah, kudos to you guys. Keep up the good work. If you can get one DA supporting it, eventually they'll all have to come out of the closet and admit it's okay. Amendment 64, as I mentioned, we're gaining momentum. I wasn't aware of this. Apparently, we had a former Denver police officer that came out and endorsed 64. And then one of the heads of the No on 64 campaign, Roger Sherman, basically called him a rent-a-cop. I mean, what an insult there, Oh, you're just a rent-a-cop. Never mind the fact you spent your whole career, defending the citizens of Denver. It's ridiculous. Again, infighting. That goes for cops too, Sam. If cops wouldn't fight, they'd be much better. So Elizabeth Warren out in Massachusetts said she supports medical marijuana. I don't think that's a big surprise, but I just wanted to give her a shout out. Excuse me. Actually, she's really a proponent for just about everything civil rights from what I've seen, and I'm always impressed with her work. Keep up the great work, and we want to get her on the show. So my producer tells me that I'm running quickly out of time, so I'm throwing news on the floor right now, unfortunately. The feds. I got to talk about the feds. They've been in Cali. It looks like there's 68 letters there, and then another 26 letters that came out in Washington State this week, I guess. And basically, for folks who don't know, these letters, they send them out to landlords and dispensaries saying, if you rent to a cannabis business or if you run a cannabis business, we're going to throw you in prison. Never mind the fact that your state passed that law some 15 years ago, or 10, 11 in our case. They don't care. They just want money. They want to put you into the prison industrial complex so you can feed the system. We got to get rid of the evil cannabis growers. And, I like to throw stats out there, and 60% of the people sitting in prison right now are sitting there for cannabis. And that's absurd. So I think we've got to jump to commercial, and then we've got to call our first Dr. Grinspoon. So stick with us here on iCannabis Radio's Overgrow the Radio. We love you. Peace.
The Hemp Connoisseur is Colorado's premier guide to hemp culture. Our mission is to elevate the image of the medical cannabis and hemp industries to create widespread acceptance of the cannabis sativa plant. You can find the latest issue of the Hemp Connoisseur at more than 200 7-Elevens, your favorite dispensary, MMJ doctor offices, and tattered covered bookstores. Do you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur? Then come be a part of the Hemp Connoisseur's first Cannabis Championship. Visit us at thcmag.com for info on how to sample the best medicine Colorado has to offer.
And we're back on Overgrow the Radio. We had a little miscommunication there, but we've got to get Dr. Grinspoon on the phone. I told him I would call him at 10 after 7, and I try to be a guy that's on time. Sam's going to go ahead and call him up real quick. Dr. Grinspoon has actually been studying cannabis longer than I've been alive, so I'm very honored and humbled at the same time to be making this call.
Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Grinspoon. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
This is your friend Stickman out here in Denver calling to have a little chat with you here on iCannabis Radio.
Fine. Nice to hear from you.
You too, you too. We had a nice conversation yesterday on the phone, and, you know, I started to give you a little bit of an introduction before we got you on the phone there. I joked that you have actually been studying cannabis a couple of years longer than I've been on the earth.
You were born sometime after 1967, then.
Absolutely. I'm 1975, so
I see. A youngster.
Absolutely. We're trying to fill some very big shoes. And I mentioned, you know, I'm very, first off, welcome, and I'm very honored and humbled to have you on the show for the first time.
Well, thank you.
You know, as someone who educated themselves in my early 20s about cannabis and the benefits, you know, it's funny, your name and your books were the first things that really popped out, you know, the first things that I found. And I also mentioned to you on the phone yesterday that you've done 1,000,001 interviews, and there's a lot of, you know, it's always the basic info, you know, I'm going to let you fill in the blanks on, you know, your introduction, your credentials, and that type of thing. But, you know, I kind of wanted to start off by pointing out the fact that you came into the world of cannabis a little different than a lot of us. You weren't always too sure about the benefits, right?
Well, I wasn't too sure about the benefits, but I was sure about its harmfulness. And unfortunately, I was, as you know, I think physicians have a tendency, and I certainly did. I shouldn't generalize, but I felt that I knew all about this drug, and I would try to persuade my friends, who, you know, we go to parties and everybody was smoking, and people would offer us marijuana, and I would, my wife and I would thank them, but no thanks, and people became quite used to both my abstemiousness and my concern that they were using this. And it was out of this kind of concern. In fact, my best friend was Carl Sagan, and he smoked it. We were frequently at these parties together. We were good friends. And I would not infrequently say, Carl, you really ought to stop using that drug. It's not good for your health. And he would just take a puff and pass it to me and say, hey, here, have a puff. And that's how he dismissed it. Well, in 1967, I was trying to finish up my work on a book on schizophrenia, and both of my co-authors were going to be a little late in getting, I was a senior author, in getting their chapters to me, and one of them 2 months late. So I found I had some time which had not really been scheduled, And I decided to go over to the Countway Library, the Harvard Medical School Library, and, summarize both the scientific and the specifically medical data, which must be the underpinning of the government's position that this was a very dangerous drug, one which I had, I must say, sort of uncritically accepted. And it was, for me, an extraordinary epiphany, an awakening. I discovered before too long that I was 180 degrees off course. And I concluded at that time with the view that it was not any inherent psychopharmacological property of the drug which was harmful to our society and to people, but the way we as a society were dealing with it by, at that time, in 1967, arresting about 300,000 people, most of them young, about 89-90% of them for mere possession, and criminalizing so many more all over the country. This was the real harm. And,
sure.
Excuse me. Hello?
Oh, no, you're good. I'm here. Continue.
Yeah. And then I wrote it up. I planned to write something that would be of interest, in a journal that would, or a magazine that would be accessible to young people, which they might have some interest in. But I ended up, because I was perhaps too thorough, writing an 80-page paper, which was published in the International Journal of Psychiatry, which nobody read, and has long since become defunct. But the editor of Scientific American, I don't know what he was doing, but he saw it, and he called me up and he said, "Look, could you shorten that to fit into our format? Because I'm very interested, and I will publish it. I'll put it right ahead of it. As soon as I get it from you, I'll put it to be published." And he published it as the lead article in Scientific American in December 1969. And that, in turn, led to several publishers coming over the office and asking me if I would do a book on this. And at first, I just said no. I had other plans and so forth. And then the deputy director of the Harvard University Press came over, and he said to me, "Look, you've already written an 80-page paper on this. If you can just make it about 3 or 4 times as long as that, we'll make it look like a book." So I thought, well. There were several reasons that I decided to go ahead with that book, which has been, led to so many other things in my life. And that is, one of them was that my son, Danny, my oldest son, at the very time I started to work on this in July of 1967, he came down with acute lymphocytic leukemia. And Danny was never very interested in my work, but when I started to work on marijuana, he was interested. And he followed that with considerable diligence. And the other reason was I found that I had become captivated, if you will, by the awareness now of just how ignorant I had been about this. That I had been brainwashed, like just about every other citizen in this country, about this very interesting and useful substance. I mean, not just useful as a drug, which has been my particular interest in it, but of course that overlooks its usefulness in industry as hemp. So I finally decided that this would be this would satisfy two goals. I would have a book. I would spend a lot of time on a book in a subject I really was interested in, fascinated by, and secondly, I hope to have the book completed in time for Danny to see it. In fact, the book was dedicated. The book Marijuana Reconsidered was dedicated to him, and my wife
Sure.
says the dedication was the best piece of writing I ever did. That sentence. The sentence was, "Children are the greatest high of all," and it came out in 1971, and that's how my getting off the main road as a faculty member of the Department of Psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School, this was not seen as a particularly useful thing for me to do. But in any event, I did this, and that's how I got into it.
Right. Absolutely. I want to kind of branch off with you a little bit. We've got some. I blocked out a big block of time for you because I'm fascinated by your career, to put it bluntly.
How big a block?
Well, we'll get you out of here in about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes.
That's fine. I thought you
No, we won't keep you all night. I know you're a couple hours ahead of what we are here.
Right.
And I go to bed early when I'm home, so I totally am not the guy to keep up late at all.
Well, it's not just going to bed, but I like to spend some time with my wife.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm not. Just go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess in that fascination, sir, I wanted to branch off. You spent really your whole career studying mental health issues and treating them.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to kind of get your opinion, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but on some of the effects of cannabis on those conditions that you treated, whether you recommended it back then or whether over time you recommended it, and what you've seen throughout the years with those.
Well, in Massachusetts, it still is an illegal. And in most states it is, but even illegal as a medicine.
Sure.
Although Massachusetts is voting on it this November, and the polls suggest that medical marijuana will win in this state quite handily, and it will become the 18th state. It's also forecast that Arkansas will, on the same date, vote for it, so there'll be a 19th state, plus the District of Columbia. But as for mental illness, the only thing that I've well, that's not true. The first thing that came to my mind about it as a mental health possibility was its usefulness for some people as an antidepressant. You wouldn't give it to somebody with a very severe affective disorder, but for the kind of reactive depression, the moderate depressions that many people suffer, some people find that this is a very useful drug. Now, this is not new because I think it was in about in the 1840s, a French psychiatrist who had read the works of the authors of the people who belonged to Le Club des Achichan, people like Baudelaire and Gautier. He tried it as an antidepressant on his patients, and first wrote about its usefulness as an antidepressant. And there were some patients I had while I was still practicing psychiatry. I became emeritus in 2000, and I stopped practicing at that time. But before then, there were some people who had reported that they were using it as an antidepressant. I remember, in fact, he was a professor at the Harvard Business School who came to see me because of his depression. And I learned from him that he used marijuana quite successfully to hold that depression at bay, but his wife had so much trouble with it, he gave it up, and now he had to find another way to relieve it. I talked to his wife a bit and suggested that if he could get relief from cannabis rather than the pharmaceutical antidepressants that were around, it might be a much safer way to do it, because marijuana, regardless, I mean, you have to put aside all that you've learned about I had, not your age, but at
Sure.
that time, all I had learned about how dangerous it was and so forth and so on. Because, in fact, it is a remarkably non-toxic antidepressant. And for some people it works. So I would say, it has to be used responsibly. And nowadays, it's much, if by responsibly, I mean you don't want someone with the psychoactive effects of marijuana to be on the road or doing something where that requires the kind of reflexes and so forth that driving do. Not that cannabis compromises reflexes that much, but it does to some degree. So it seemed to me that, and I had several other patients, and some of them who use marijuana recreationally, I suggested they might try this because by this time I was getting a lot of letters at that time. Nowadays it's emails. People telling me, sharing their experiences with it, for using it for a number of medical reasons. And one of the ones that came up most often was depression. And similarly, there are some other things like OCD. And I don't make a claim that there are, double-blind studies which show this to be true. You can't.
Sure.
They aren't done. They will be eventually, but right now the atmosphere is still not supportive of this. And for example, while I certainly don't want children using cannabis, there's no question that for some autistic children, this is a very useful drug. And I would suggest that anybody who's interested in that aspect of it, take a look at my medical marijuana website, because it's www.rxmarijuana.com, as though RX marijuana is all one word, because it can be useful very useful in these children, particularly those who have difficulty controlling their aggression or their outbursts or what have you. So, and I think that other things are going to be written about in the future, but I don't think there's enough data now to talk about them on the radio, lest people run out and start doing this.
Sure. Well, if you don't mind, I actually wanted to digress for a second, because you've hit on it a few times actually now, and you were a pioneer in this research at a time when really Nixon, the war on drugs amped up again, if you will. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, right.
And I asked you briefly yesterday. I'm curious what the perception was, both of your work, in the public face, but then again, amongst colleagues, as a whole, was it accepted by the medical community, or was?
No. It was my colleagues took a very dim view of my getting into this. It was really seen to be off the righteous path of a young academic in psychiatry. And in fact, my full professorship was held up by the Harvard Medical School, and the member of the promotions committee, who was my chief, told me that they loved the book I did on schizophrenia and other stuff I did, but they didn't like Marijuana Reconsidered. And I asked them, what didn't they like about it? I mean, not that I had, I'm sure there are lots of other people don't like. And he said, his answer was, it was too controversial. Upon which I said, controversial? Isn't this the academy? Isn't this a place we judge things on the basis of scholarship? And those kind of criteria are not controversy.
Sure.
And he said to me, hey, listen, don't blame me. I'm just the messenger here. So, at any rate, and I never did get my full professorship. It came up 5 years before I made it public that I was going to go and retire in 2000. And the promotions committee took it up again because I think some of them felt that they may have made a mistake many years before that when they turned it down. And again, this time they passed it, but the head of the Department of Psychiatry, of the Joint Departments of Psychiatry, refused to sign off on it until the new dean came in July. This was November. And one of the first things the new dean was confronted was this problem. And it was vetoed by the new dean he had never met me. He didn't even call me. I just heard that it was vetoed. So Harvard Medical School clearly had some problems with it, and many of my colleagues did as well. Not all, but many did. I think the situation has changed a great deal now because medical marijuana is beginning to be recognized as not just some kind of fantasy, but even the big pharmaceutical companies want to get into it, but they can't patent the plant, so we're going to have to find other ways to do it.
Thank goodness.
Yes. Well, I think my position is it's important that when we get rid of this prohibition and control it like alcohol, that it's important that people be allowed to grow a minimal number of plants themselves if they want to, because that's really the only defense about big pharma and anyone else who wants to take people's right to use this remarkable herb away from them.
Absolutely. So I have to ask, you as I mentioned earlier, we're in the mental health profession for a long time. And I want to get your opinion because something that's a huge epidemic right now in our country is the abuse of prescription drugs. And one of the, an ailment that is most prescribed for are mental health issues of various degrees. I suffer from anxiety, and they've tried to put me on everything that you can imagine. And I wanted to get your opinion on that, the drastic rise in prescriptions, over the course of your career.
Well, I think that, I was going to say about the use of cannabis for any of these as a therapeutic has been greatly facilitated over the last, just recently, over the last year, by the discovery or the realization that there are about 80-odd cannabinoids. We don't know exactly, but there are all these 21 carbon variations of the cannabinoid molecule. The one we're most acquainted with is called delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC. But another one that's becoming prominent, and that's the molecule that leads to the high as well as the therapeutic effects. But recently it's been discovered that there's another cannabinoid called cannabidiol, which, or CBD, which appears to have pretty much the same therapeutic utilities as THC, but has no psychoactive effect. And for some people, for example, one of the patients I use to illustrate its use in my book, Marijuana, the Forbidden Medicine, which was first published in 1993, and then I learned so much more about it in 1997. Mr. Backlar and I, James B. Backlar and I, who wrote it, did a second edition, which was just about twice the length of the first one, because there were so many things we were learning about it. Now, we used a lot of patient material to illustrate this, and one of the patients was a man by the name of Stephen J. Gould. You may know him or know of him. He's written a number of books for lay people. He's no longer alive. But Steve had a testicular cancer, and he had to take a chemotherapeutic which led to really quite severe nausea and vomiting. And he found this so difficult. As he says in this essay in my book, he thought of giving up therapy. He just couldn't stand it. And then he learned about marijuana and what it can do for nausea and vomiting. He started to use marijuana. He was completely free of that awful nausea and vomiting after each of his therapies. And he continued to take the chemotherapy, and he defeated the testicular cancer. But as he wrote in that essay too, he hated the psychoactive effects. He just hated it. He thought they were awful. They weren't quite as bad as the nausea and vomiting, but he didn't like it.
Sure.
And you see now today, he could take. Well, let me tell you what happened. Marijuana, most strains of marijuana had, just to limit ourselves to these two molecules, THC and CBD, most of them had levels of THC and CBD. But nobody was interested in CBD in the 60s, and right on from there in the Netherlands and British Columbia, in California, in the big grow areas, people were trying very hard to develop strains that brought the THC level up from, let's say, in the 1960s, maybe 3 to 5%, to bring it up, to make it into what they first called skunk, a relatively high THC level. Now, it was also discovered that as the THC level went up, the CBD level went down. But now we know that you can get most of the therapeutic effects by taking a high CBD cannabis and not have psychoactive effects. In fact, CBD counteracts any tendency towards the psychoactive. It counteracts the psychoactive effects. A person who is taking a high CBD strain and then smokes one with a balance towards THC will find it very hard to get to get high, because this would have been just perfect for a person like Steve Gould, Stephen Jay Gould or anyone else who is being treated who doesn't want to have the high. It's now possible to do that because now the race is to get the CBD up again.
Sure.
And it's being it's coming along very nice. For example, there's a strain now called Marigold that has about 8% of both THC and CBD, and and you don't get a high, but you do get the therapeutic effect. So I think for people who had trouble with the high, who didn't like it, there are now choices of high CBD strains. Now, CBD has, by some South American investigators, been isolated, and but apparently it does. You can't just take CBD and get the effects. It's got to be CBD in the context of the herb, because it's not just the cannabinoids, but there are other compounds in cannabis which also play perhaps a synergistic role. In other words, working in kind of partnership with THC or CBD to promote these therapeutic effects. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I was talking about the rise in prescription drugs, and you really just kind of you did answer it, because to kind of add to what you're saying, I touched on it briefly with you on the phone. We have an organization here in Colorado that gets children with like Dravet's syndrome and cancer patients medicine, and they're growing.
What syndrome?
Dravet's, which is very much like an epileptic syndrome. And Charlotte's Web is a strain that they've grown out here that is identical to what you're talking about, where they've really raised the CBDs back up and done away with the THC. And I think, you know, a lot of parents, they're seeing remarkable results with this syndrome with cannabis. And a lot of the parents involved, you know, like a lot of Americans, were very iffy and you know, a little, if you will, sketched out by using cannabis for their children. And I think that helps get over the stigma when you know you're giving your child a product that's not going to give them that euphoric feeling.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Well, I forgot what I was saying. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask,
what I meant to say.
Do you, and again, in your opinion, do you think as we perfect these strains and as more and more states become medical, excuse me, do you think we'll start to see a drop again in the number of prescriptions written by, you know, in the psychiatric world and mental health world in general, and maybe a shift towards cannabis, you know, with the help of good doctors like yourself?
Well, I'm not so sure it'll be so. It may be in the field of mental health, but certainly, you know, I mean, most of those prescriptions are for drugs like OxyContin or OxyContin. They're opiate derivatives, and that's the thing that there are also a lot of you know, Valium-like drugs that are used there. But OxyContin is really the biggest, and drugs like it, the opiate derivatives, which are used for pain, are the ones that people can get hooked on very easily. And I think as people come to appreciate that cannabis will deal with a lot of the pain, not as well as an opiate. I mean, if you have real heavy-duty pain, you probably have to use an opiate. But even so, there are studies now that show that if you are suffering from severe pain and you're on opiates, if you take cannabis along with it, you can reduce the amount of the opiate that you're taking.
Yes, sir. So, I would be one of those people. I had a failed laminectomy and got myself from over 30 pills a day, 10 of those being pain pills, down to next to nothing now. So I am that guy.
Yeah, well, there you are, and lots of people are discovering, and doctors are beginning to discover that this may be true. That see, doctors learn about drugs, pharmacology. I mean, they take a course in pharmacology and so forth, and they understand the theory to the extent it's known behind that. But when it comes, when they get out in practice, where they learn about drugs is from the drug industry, largely, with all the ads in the journals, and the drug industry finances so many of the papers on these drugs and so forth and so on. There's no formal way for doctors to learn about cannabis yet. There will be. There are beginning to be some, like a physician like Jeffrey Hergenrather and some of his colleagues in California are now giving a course for CME credits to doctors, a course in the use of cannabis as a medicine, and there are doctors who are attending that course. So, sure. I think the situation is changing, and I look to the day when cannabis will be seen, and all the things that are being derived from it will be seen as a kind of wonder medicine, just like a wonder drug, just like penicillin was in 1941. Penicillin was discovered in 1928, but a man who discovered it just put it on the shelf, and it wasn't until 1941 when the United States was getting into World War II, and it was realized that the only antibiotic we had at that time was one called sulfonamide, and it wasn't all that great, but it's the only thing we had. And as prior to World War I, so many people who died battle as a result of battlefield injury died of infection because we had limited ways of dealing with. Well, when penicillin came along, it really was a wonder drug. And,
sure.
Because, why was it a wonder drug? One, because, and the least important, once it was produced on an economy of scale, it was very inexpensive. And if you look at cannabis that way, once it is free of what I call the prohibition tariff, it will be very inexpensive relative to what Big Pharma has to offer for the same thing. Two, penicillin was remarkably free of toxicity. The same could be said of, and there aren't that many drugs about which you can say, hey, there's very little toxicity. I mean, I won't go down that path too much, but cannabis was like penicillin. Cannabis is like penicillin was before it became ineffective because we overused it and have developed penicillin-resistant bacteria. It was a quite safe drug to use, non-toxic drug. And thirdly, penicillin was quite versatile. You could treat any number of gram-positive infections and even spirochetal infections like syphilis. Similarly, marijuana, every day it's being discovered a new use for it. It is very versatile. So I think these are the three criteria that make up, a very special drug. And while cannabis has not achieved that yet because it's, so much of it is so many people are just getting educated about it. It's gone from this, reefer madness type thing. I think it's going, I should say, some people still see it that way, to a relatively non-toxic drug. There's never been a death from marijuana anywhere in the world from marijuana alone. Now, the Europeans foolishly mixed marijuana with tobacco in there, so you have to accept
sure.
them. You have to keep them out of it. Those data out of it, but marijuana alone, you can't even take an overdose of it in its herbal form. There is a new form that comes out of the laboratory, which is said to be 500 times more potent, 100 to 500 times more potent than THC. But, accepting, if you're just talking about herbal cannabis, it's a remarkably safe drug.
Absolutely. And we could absolutely go on for hours. I'm going to get you to your wife here in just a few minutes, like you said, to relax. I've got a quick question for you, and this is a little bit off topic, and I would love to have you back on, and we'll delve into a lot more technical, fun science and learn. You've done a lot of legal proceedings. You've been an expert witness over the years. There's a name when I was surfing the web today that I came across, and I just want to hear the story of this, because you actually testified at the deportation hearing of John Lennon.
That's right. Yeah, that came about because John and Yoko became very involved in the anti-Vietnam War campaign, and they were very effective. John Lennon was the most popular man, something like the most popular man of the best. He was a very well-known person, and also very articulate. And thirdly, he was passionately against that war. Mm-hmm. And the Attorney General at that time, this was during the Nixon administration, was a man by the name of, I'm forgetting his John, come back to me. But at any rate, his wife said, John, we've got to get John Lennon out of the country. She was concerned, as was everybody in the Nixon administration, about his very loud and effective anti-war campaign. And so he had been arrested on a hashish charge in England before he came to this country. The story there was a London policeman who disliked John Lennon so much that he spent his free weekend time pursuing John Lennon as a marijuana user, a hashish user. And finally, they got him on possession. They went into his apartment, and they found some hashish. Now, I had dinner with John and Yoko the night before, and they assured me that was planted there. They didn't deny that they used hashish or marijuana, but they said they would never be foolish enough to leave it in any of the places, where they lived or what have you.
Sure.
So it was a put-up case. But at any rate, the federal authorities then wanted to use this to deport him. And at the deportation hearings, there were 3 witnesses. There were 2 to speak to his importance to our culture. Dick Cavett was one of them. I can't remember the name of the other one. He was the head of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I can't remember his name. And I was the 3rd witness to testify about, the actual toxicity of this. And in the course of that, I just got up on the witness stand when, after they, swore me in and went over my credentials were accepted and everything, I was asked, he was arrested on hashish.
Sure.
In the United States, hashish was not mentioned in the law. It was just marijuana. Mm-hmm. So it's not the first. It was one of the first questions the prosecutor asked me was, are hashish and marijuana the same thing? And I said, no. Now, they're not exactly the same thing, but of course, right. What is sought from them is the same. They're different forms, but I figured I wasn't going to do the government's work. He could ask me the follow-up questions, which would establish that it came ultimately from the same product, but he didn't. He was consternated, and the judge was. and the judge, they were both aware that the law that he was brought up on said marijuana. And if this wasn't exactly the same as hashish, how could they do this? And so there was great consternation. And finally, right then and there, they dismissed the thing. And we walked out of the courthouse, I with John and Yoko, and apparently while this trial was going on, word got around, I guess it was on one of the rock radio stations or something, that this trial was going on and where the courthouse was. Because when we walked out, the three of us, and I was holding these records, he and Yoko had signed some records, autographed them for my son, and I was flying home that afternoon. They were going to take me to the airport. And outside of the courtroom was this huge crowd of teenage girls yelling and screaming, and the police holding them back, like I had seen of films, in taken in England, and they were, and they kept. It was a real royal battle, so there weren't that many police officers there to hold them back. And finally, one of them saw that I had these records in my hand, and they were autographed. And wow, they come after me for an instant, a couple of minutes. I knew what it must have been like, what it must have felt like for John and the Beatles to try and go out in public somewhere. At any rate, they did get they didn't get the records from me, but they destroyed them. But we stopped at Apple Records on the way home, and they did they re-autographed them, and I flew them home for my two sons.
That's great. That's great. My only other question to you is, I guess we talked earlier about the benefits of hemp and the progression of legalization. I wanted to get your thoughts on our amendment here in Colorado. Your feelings on Amendment 64 real quick.
Well, I hope it passes, and I hope the one in Oregon and the one in Washington, I-502, pass, because, none of them is a perfect legalization bill, if you will.
Sure.
But it's going to, look how far we've come in the last few years, since 1996, when California first passed Proposition 215. It's not perfect, but it opened the door.
It's a baby step, sure.
Right, and we can't expect to get everything we want right away. You have to take the salami and do it one slice at a time. And as far as I'm concerned, in these three states, these are new slices of the salami, and I certainly hope they succeed.
Absolutely. Well, sir, I won't keep you any longer. We're going to cut away for a break. I want to absolutely thank you for being on the show, and I hope you'll join us again. And, there's 1,002 things we can talk about down the road.
Well, it's a pleasure for me, and I wish you the best with your show.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to end by saying, you just mentioned you knew what it felt like to be a superstar, but I think in the cannabis world, you've accomplished that. So,
well, I can tell you, I don't have a lot of adolescent girls trying to get hold of me.
Don't feel bad. Me neither. Me neither. Well,
Okay,
enjoy your night, and our best to your family, and I'll hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Bye. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here on Overgrow the Radio. I got a little back pain that needs to be taken care of, and my next guest just joined me. We're going to come back and have a little segment about hydro versus dirt, the best way to grow, or our opinion of the best way to grow. We'll talk to you in a little bit. Stick with us here on Overgrow the Radio. Peace.
Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com DixieElixirs.com. Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the nation's premier infused product manufacturers, brings you the newest in hemp CBD wellness products, Dixie X. Derived from CBD from medicinal hemp, this non-psychoactive cannabinoid provides the medicinal effects of cannabis, but without the high. Join the Dixie X revolution today at www.dixiex.com or like us on Facebook, Dixie X or Dixie Elixirs.
The law offices of Edson, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
Interested in hemp CBD wellness products? Join the Dixie X revolution. Dixie X has created 3 new products using hemp-derived CBD. Dixie X Scripts capsules, Dixie X Dewdrops, and a 1-ounce 100 milligram formula and a 2-ounce 500 milligram formula, and Dixie X Botanicals Pain Relief Salve. If you're interested in these products, look for us on Facebook, Dixie X, or at www.dixiex.com. Interested in the amazing benefits of CBD? Check out Dixie X Hemp CBD Wellness Products at www.dixiex.com.
California's Attorney General has determined that the Repeal Cannabis Prohibition Act will save hundreds of millions of dollars from our overburdened justice system while creating hundreds of millions in new tax revenues from new sustainable jobs and industries that are friendly to our environment. But we can't do it without your help. We are seeking your donations to get on the ballot. Please go to repealcannabisprohibition.org to learn more about how you can help. It's time to end the war on cannabis and hemp in California. It's time to end the madness. Paid for by Sensible Californians Incorporated.
And we're back on Overgrow the Radio. I'm happy to welcome back my buddy from Kentucky, Mr. Drew Milburn.
Hey.
We Grow Colorado down in Colorado Springs. I haven't plugged my sponsors yet tonight. I've been slacking and not doing it until towards the end.
Give us a plug.
I know. You
Speaking of growing, give me a plug. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking. I stopped in, I guess Monday it was or so, and grabbed a quarter of some purple Urkel with a little bit of We Grow's spin on
little
it.
Papa's twist on it. That's right.
You know, and man, it's amazing. Yeah, we were talking earlier, one of the other producers and I, and a lot of the purple weed, I'm just going to call it that.
Right.
Some of it's not all that great, and there's a couple strains that I've really found I liked, and I can add that to the list. So
we like the color purple.
Keep up the little twist. It works, man.
All right.
It works.
Thank you.
So welcome. You're in once a month to teach us a little something about growing and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. We'll give it a shot anyway.
The last time you were here, I almost got sued for slander, but we've already addressed that one.
Try not to make it twice.
We'll keep everyone happy tonight.
That's right.
You know? So I guess what we want to talk about tonight is we're lucky here in Colorado. We have so many choices. You know, unfortunately, we technically, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't really grow outdoors. Greenhouse, yes, but backyard is...
Well, I mean, the whole backyard thing is from what I gather, especially is if you're growing your own meds, the key is it can't be seen by your neighbors or anyone for that matter. Specifically the guy flying overhead.
Well, I was going to add that, man. Does that count the DEA chopper?
Yeah, exactly.
Over?
But you know, that's the biggest way that we see that patients get hassled is the fact that they're not responsible for their grow. You know, they're taking for granted that they have the right to grow 6 plants and they don't have to be neighborly. Just try to always keep in mind that, you know, we have a certain freedom here, but the freedom has responsibility as well. And please, if you're if you're going to be a patient and grow your own meds, be responsible and be a friendly or a good neighbor, and that'll keep you out of trouble.
Absolutely. We know Fort Collins, I laugh up there because they went on that big war, you know, and got their dispensaries out, and, they were saying it's in all the neighborhoods, and then it all went to home grows now, and once in a while you do see issues. My point being in American Weed, one of the bad examples put out there in that show was the guy growing cannabis on the side of his house where the school kids walk through.
That's right.
And that's, as a parent, as a concerned parent, granted, it's harmless, but at the same time, it's not something you want your child to be able to just go pick and,
Yeah, well, you don't want, we don't want them, we wouldn't want them in the liquor cabinet.
Exactly.
Right? And we wouldn't want them with our guns. Again, it's all about responsibility, and of course, I found that the folks that get in trouble, they've not exercised any type of responsibility. So,
well, and it's funny too when you do exercise that as a parent and a patient. Like with my daughter, she knows, I can have all the cookies in the world laying around, but she knows they're dad's cookies, and she doesn't look twice, and it's not a big deal.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the norm.
That's right.
Unfortunately, the kids in our country and around the world are intrigued by cannabis because we've demonized it so badly.
True.
So when they walk by a patch of cannabis as a preteen or a teenager, their first reaction is, wow, I'm going to pick some of this and try it out.
Right.
I mean, not everyone, of course, but,
That's right.
So I'm just kind of reinforcing what you just said, to start off the segment. When you are a grower or you're growing your own as a patient, please exercise that responsibility. If you don't, it makes us look bad, and it's not safe for anyone involved, really.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But, yeah, with the hydro dirt thing, I guess the first topic there that would come to my mind, and probably a lot of people's mind, is what's the easiest method? As a patient, I want easy.
Well, that's probably the only easy question there is when it comes to growing, frankly, because, if you're going to grow in soil or some type of potting mix, that's bar none the easiest way to grow, in my opinion. And again, my opinion, nobody has to call in.
Well, we were just talking about that, man. We get to express our opinion, and that's the way it is.
Well, the one thing is I don't think anyone can argue is, the soil or we often say dirt. It's really some type of potting mix if you're going to do it right. And in a case like that acts as a buffer. When you're talking hydroponics, and the term hydroponics simply means without soil or soilless, you have a more direct impact on the plant itself. So, grown in dirt or in soil is certainly going to be an easier take on it for sure.
Absolutely. I have to point out for folks that don't live in Colorado, we always try to approach everything from a layman's term because, myself included, when I moved here, I knew nothing. And I learn as I go every day. You're lucky enough here to be able to go into these grow stores. We have one 10 foot away, where you can go in and get pre-mixed soil that's directed specifically for your meds.
Sure.
I mean, do you, I guess my question being, do you prefer that as someone going in to buy that, or would you mix your own and kind of play around a little bit?
I think if you want the best results, you're going to have to play with it. Keep it in mind, it's like anything else. You're creating a blend, okay? And from a manufacturing standpoint, they don't know which strain you're growing, what the ultimate end result for you as an individual. They have to operate on maybe say the 80% rule. It's like, hey, we're putting this out there. We know that your plant will grow. It will be successful, at least within 80% of the program. And so I think that's what makes it safe. But the guys who grow in soil or dirt or some type of mix that do it the best, they got their own trace minerals. They all these amendments that they make. I mean, it's quite the concoction, frankly. I mean, it rolls in with 10 bags of this, that, and everything else. From all around the world, frankly. This product. Different trace minerals coming from the seabeds in the Mediterranean. This, you name it, it comes from it. But the guys that are good at it and great at producing the perfect, if there is such a thing as a perfect bud from these plants grown in soil, it's a secret mix, let's say. So like the old KFC. I mean, it's their deal.
Well, and I'm always hesitant to compare it to alcohol.
Right.
But well, we'll use a food comparison. As a chef, you're always throwing different spices in. You're not going to tell your buddy, the other chef, how to do. Yeah. I was going to throw a little Kentucky, Tennessee, Appalachia thing in and say, I when I'm hiking every once in a while, I'll be around a campfire and someone has a little mason jar,
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing, that there can be dangers in that. I want to throw that out there, but when the folks and they're making good liquor, we'll call it liquor. It's just like that. I mean, you have your little secrets. They have their little spices and stuff they add. I mean, one of my favorites. It's no secret. I've bent the law a time or two, so I don't mind saying this. One of my favorites is apple pie.
Oh,
and it's the flavor's immaculate. I've had other folks try to copy it and it's just not the same. So cannabis is absolutely that way. You work it into a science, and the growers are very, and rightly so, secretive of what they do as far as soil on up.
Yeah, that's right. And whether it's the soil itself or coming up with a food chart for your hydroponic system, all of that. What you're trying to do, if you're a good grower or if you're interested in a great product, you really have to take the time to understand the plant. And it's different across the strains. Often we will put a strain in, to help the patient because they've either seen it somewhere, heard about it, read about it. So if we can find a clone from another dispensary or here in the state, we'll try it out. But, there are many times where it doesn't fit our program. Meaning it either takes too long to finish out or it doesn't like the food we're giving it. So therefore it doesn't thrive. So it immediately leaves our program, because – and moving on to something else where – so as grower, that's job number one. I often tell people, especially if you're going to grow yourself, number one, pick your strain that you have already determined will treat your ailment the best. Once you have that, then if you're going to go at it small, I say, find a nice potting mix using the grow stores. I'm a big fan of a good grow store, and of course that's local and even within your local communities, go to 2 or 3. Go to as many as you can until you find that right rapport with someone who's not just treating you like a customer, but treating you like the grower that you want to become. So
grow stores in Colorado are pretty much like Walgreens and McDonald's everywhere else across the country. For folks who don't know, we have them. Yeah. I mean, if you're more than 5 blocks away from a grow store, you must be out in the mountains somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. and frankly, if you travel much, go to 10 different McDonald's. Trust me, there are 10 different setups. Same food, supposedly, but some are neater, cleaner, more organized, better service, the whole thing. And this is what you can get. This is why I suggest that you go to multiple grow stores until you can find one that fits your personality and wants to work with you because they know you're a small-scale individual. They're still interested in helping you out and can give you some good advice. Get that and then start your process.
Well, yeah, man, we're kind of cramming.
Yes,
we do
of course.
That here a
Imagine,
lot. Yeah, go figure. Drew and I, it's funny, the people I do segments with now, we can go on for hours.
Right, that's right.
Dixie will be back in. We're going to talk about them in a second real quick, but they'll
folks.
be back in next week to do an hour, and I think Tripp's coming in, and it'll probably go longer than that.
We're good folks. We're Tripp's worse than me. You can talk
Yeah, actually, you went out and toured their place.
Yeah.
It's impressive, huh?
Well, I think the biggest or the most impressive part of Dixie is the people who are inside Dixie.
I concur.
Like all of us, I think they are pushing to do it better every day. And no matter whether you think you're the best or not, we all know better. That it takes constant refinement. And what I like about the Dixie organization is that they seem to be putting their best foot forward daily. And everyone I've met there and have had the pleasure of being introduced to, they take their job serious. They take the patient serious. Even though they are extremely at an arm's length away from the day-to-day activity of the patients, that's their number one concern, I think. And they don't treat it as a drop-dead business as much as they treat it as a push for the best of our industry, and I really give them a lot of kudos for that.
Well, and they do, and I know right now, talking with my friend Christy Lunsford, their marketing director, sales director, something like that.
Right. She's in there somewhere.
She was telling me yesterday, man, they're swamped right now with calls, obviously, from
Sure.
the new CBD line, and they do. They answer them personally. They take the time to talk with people, whether they're busy or not. That's their first priority.
Well, it's important.
I'll go ahead and throw out real quick and just interrupt
Sure.
our segment
Sure.
and say that the banner behind us is not. I'm using their prop as my prop. We're doing station ads, so if anybody out there is interested, these run in every show. And we can chat statistics. Just shoot us an email here at iCannabis Radio. Anyway, got that out of the way. So
back to the growing.
Yeah, back to the growing. I guess, again, in my mind anyway, a big concern is yield, of course.
You're right.
If I'm looking for the highest yield,
right,
as a layman grower,
Sure.
you know, which way would I go there?
Well, let's be clear. Now, whether you grow in dirt or in hydroponics, it's all going to come down to how much effort and responsibility you take as an individual, because the only thing that's going to ultimately be a difference there will be the taste. Okay, not the potency, not the yield, any of these things. The number one, if you put the same grower growing side by side, you know, in a plant that would get a normal, you know, let's say 8-ounce yield, 4-ounce yield, whatever it might be, probably going to be the same based on the conditions at the end of the day. But there will be a difference in taste.
Wait a second. I read an article the other day that said you could get like 3 pounds off of a plant.
Okay, well,
it was totally out of the UK.
Yeah, I was going to say, anything is possible. And here's what I can tell you. I have physically seen myself a 2.5-pound plant grown in hydroponics. I have seen at least a 2-pound plus plant grown in soil. Sure. So to me, this always comes back to how long did they veg a plant, meaning have it in its vegetative state. What kind of effort did they put into its early life? Okay, but with all that said, the one thing that I think can be noted is that, let's say you're growing this purple Urkel that you mentioned earlier. You could grow it in soil. You could grow it in rock wool, hydrogen, some aquaponics, aeroponics, you name it. Going to come out, but it's going to taste different based on the medium that you grew it in. And that's something that everyone should be aware of when they take off, because it's finishing this plant off, any of the plants, is where the real refinement in the flavors come from, and again, not the potency so much as that flavor you're used to. We have a lot of patients that come into us that are let's say a little older, and so they've experienced the marijuana before it was medical marijuana, and dirt grown, blah blah blah. So it's sort of like the Coke and Pepsi thing. What do you like? Do you like that little, let's say, more earthy tones as opposed to just one thing you can guarantee yourself from a hydroponic garden is that the genetics of that plant will be realized 100%, because you're not adding in any kind of buffer. You're feeding it, you're growing it, and whatever it was genetically predisposed to give you is what it will give you in terms of flavor and let's say the euphoric feeling, let's say from the THC, the medicinal effects, CBD, you name it. That's more directly. But it's also much harder to grow in a hydroponic space than it is in dirt, for sure.
Well, and what you just said, I mean, it varies from plant to plant, strain to strain,
right,
what you're going to get as far as your yield. Again, I like to play stupid and devil's advocate and throw you in.
Okay, I can handle that.
I guess the last thing, again, as a patient, say I'm switching over and I'm going to start growing my own meds, and I need meds. What's the speediest method between the two?
Well, there's, again, no difference in that regard. Your strain is what predetermines that. If you have a strain, let's say some of the diesels that people often enjoy, a lot of those diesels or any of the sativa line.
I never enjoy diesel.
I can't imagine. They have a tendency to want to finish off in, say, 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks, as opposed to something that might finish off in your indica line or your cushions, things like that, might finish off 7 or 8 weeks in the flowering stage. Now, that you could grow it for a month to 5 months in its vegetative stage. Actually, you could grow it indefinitely in the vegetative stage, but there's a point where you're probably not going to get any greater yield just because you vegged it an extra amount of time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that we could all grow the 17-foot sativas that are year-round down in New Zealand and Australia. You've surely seen those on Facebook. Man. They're ridiculous. They're like 20, 20 foot tall. Anyway, it's amazing. We kind of did a little bit of an abbreviated segment tonight. Of course, you're here every once in a while, so we'll have time to get back into this in more detail. I put it out at the very last minute for questions, and we didn't get any out of our chatters. They're kind of quiet tonight. So
I understand.
We'll continue this for another time because I do have more questions. There's so much to talk about with growing and so many aspects of growing. We were talking in the break how if you're like me, and you make concentrates and whatnot, then you totally you have to have more product. And the quality of the product is essential. A lot of times you're using your trim for your medicine, for your concentrates and things. So you really need to make sure you're producing quality plants all the way through. You don't want the yellow leaves and the bad product in the end.
Yeah, and the big point is about all growers. Just understand this, and I'll say this to everybody out there. Don't start it if you can't finish it. Mm-hmm. Just understand this. No matter what you're growing, it's 12 weeks. Period. Bare minimum. If
it's a commitment.
It's a commitment for at least that, not to mention the dollars. So if you're going to give it a try, understand that it is work. This isn't something you set up in the kitchen window. Well, you might set it in the kitchen window, but it's not like setting a little plant from Home Depot up in the kitchen window and saying, maybe I'll do something with it today. Maybe I won't. I'm going to go out of town for 2 or 3 days. It'll survive. It's 12 weeks. Bar none, commitment, and again, not to mention the financial piece, but don't set out on or embark on this if you're not, because you're going to be disappointed. It may live, they don't call it a weed for nothing. It may survive, but it will not give you the yield or the let's say lasting effect that you want it to.
Absolutely. I've seen some of those plants over the years.
That's right.
Well, Drew, I encourage folks when they're down in the Springs, of course, to shop at your place. Give us your address there at WeGrow.
Yeah, WeGrow, Colorado is located at 2502 East Bijou Street, and that's there in Colorado Springs. And if somebody does want to email me, they can email me at thecannabisprofessor@gmail.com.
And you might get some good advice on how to set up and grow some
or you
meds.
might not like what you hear. Either way, you're going to get it.
Yeah. That's why I like you, man. That's why you're here. All right. Well, thanks for coming in, and we'll talk to you again in a few weeks. We're always running late, but we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna call Candace out in D.C. from Moms for Marijuana.
All right.
We've got a big protest in 2 weeks, so we'll be right back on Overgrow the Radio.
Get her done.
The law offices of Edson, Mayton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the nation's premier infused product manufacturers, brings you the newest in hemp CBD wellness products, Dixie X. Derived from CBD from medicinal hemp, This non-psychoactive cannabinoid provides the medicinal effects of cannabis, but without the high. Join the Dixie X revolution today at www.dixiex.com or like us on Facebook, Dixie X or Dixie Elixirs. Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com.
The Hemp Connoisseur is Colorado's premier guide to hemp culture. Our mission is to elevate the image of the medical cannabis and hemp industries to create widespread acceptance of the cannabis sativa plant. You can find the latest issue of the Hemp Connoisseur at more than 200 7-Elevens, your favorite dispensary, MMJ doctor offices, and tattered covered bookstores. Do you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur? Then come be a part of the Hemp Connoisseur's first Cannabis Championship. Visit us at thcmag.com for info on how to sample the best medicine Colorado has to offer.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
And we're back on Overgrow the Radio. Myself and my producer Sam are here in the studio. We're about to call Candace Junkin. Candace is a friend of mine and assistant to the director of Moms for Marijuana nationwide, Sarah Frank. And we're about to do a joint venture out in D.C. with these ladies and their organization and present a quilt to D.C. and ask that they leave us patients and caregivers alone. So we're going to get an update because we've got 2 weeks. We're going to be out there on the 15th. And then on the 16th, the ASA is going to be there for their big lawsuit. So I really hope everyone sticks around for that. Let's see if she can. Hopefully we didn't catch her sleeping.
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you? This is Stickman and my producer, Sam.
Hi, Stickman. Hi, Sam.
Sam says hi. I didn't give Sam a mic tonight. We put him in the corner. It's actually Sam's first solo show, and he's doing amazing.
All right.
In the beginning, we had some commercials that decided not to play, which actually worked out because we had more time with Dr. Grinspoon. So good stuff.
Okay.
So how are you this evening?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. We've got 2 weeks. Are you guys ready for everything?
I am ready to unveil this quilt and listen to all these great speakers. I'm really excited about this. It's come together really nice.
Very good. I made a phone call to DC this morning, and I worked out all of our permit stuff, and hopefully they'll be emailing them directly to you guys, and there'll be no postage involved. So,
great. Okay.
Do you want to the speaker list I saw posted right before the show? I guess that means it's finalized. Can you tell us who's speaking?
It is finalized. Yes. You want me to tell you some of the people we have on it?
Please, you can tell us all of them.
We have Steph Shear, the founder and executive director of Americans for Safe Access. I'm really excited about that one because of the federal rescheduling hearings the next day.
Well, I just mentioned that, Candace, and told everyone that's going, absolutely make sure you just stay one extra day in D.C., as painful as it is.
Right.
And show support for that hearing. I mean, this is 10 years in the waiting. Absolutely.
I know. This is big stuff, and everybody ought to stick around and show their support for this. But and then we have Michael Krowitz, who is the president of Veterans for Medical Marijuana. We have Morgan Fox from the Marijuana Policy Project. We have Sean Dunnigan, who's a member of LEAP, and a former DEA agent. So he's really interesting to listen to. Drew Stromberg, who is the outreach director for Students for Sensible Drug Policy. We have Sabrina Fendrick from NORML. Chris Hirsch, who is a great guy. I just love him to death. He's the founder of People for the Cannabis Culture. We have Dana Averson, who is one of our moms, and also the founder of a group in Tennessee called Medical Marijuana for Tennesseans. She's also the mother and the mastermind of our cannabis quilt. She came up with this idea, and it just took off.
And she's also, she's also Overgrow board member. So she pulls both hats there.
I always forget to mention that when I'm talking about Dana.
Well, we all wear so many hats. I mean, if you tried to keep everyone's resume in your mind, it would drive you nuts. It's impossible.
I know. I know, especially my mind. So, and then we have Rebecca Forbes. Everybody knows Rebecca. I call her North Carolina's Queen of Cannabis. She's
Nice.
also on the board of Overgrow and has several other things on her resume. We have John Bryan, and John Bryan is one of our only 2 male chapter leaders in Moms for Marijuana.
Nice.
He's going to talk a little bit about being a male mom for marijuana.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm actually hearing the list. I'm kind of sad I'm not going to be there. That's amazing. I've been trying to get Morgan out to speak for the last 3 protests.
Yeah, well, I was really excited about all of them.
Absolutely.
I'm sad that you're not going to be there, too. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I know. I didn't put a lot of effort into fundraising for DC this year to get sponsors, so it's just,
right.
It is what it is. We'll be there next time. You guys have a very good soldier from Overgrow. Well, 2 good soldiers, and Rebecca and Dana both.
Oh, absolutely.
Rebecca took the helms for me last year as I was out blowing off some steam and backpacking in the woods, and I think she'll be phenomenal again this year. So you guys will do great.
Yeah, I haven't met Rebecca yet, and I cannot wait to meet her. She's really helped me a whole lot.
Well, when you do, you've got to give her an extra big hug for me.
I will, I promise.
Right on. So, besides speakers, I mean, this is obviously a huge event and took a lot of planning for moms, more so than me or our organization. We just kind of did the whole logistical, we'll help you guys out thing this time.
Right.
What do you guys, is there anything after the protest that's coming up that Moms is up to?
Well, we have our next regional conference in Boston. The quilt is going to go from D.C. to Boston, and then it's going to travel around the United States to regional conferences all over the country. And eventually we hope to include our international chapters. But this year, anyway, it's going to travel around the United States to different rallies and our regional conferences.
Isn't that awesome that, well, all organizations like Moms and Overgrow, how there is the branch out overseas almost instantly. Moms for Marijuana.
We're actually in 15 countries now.
Awesome. That's amazing. We have a loyal listener. I always give him a shout out. It looks like he might have jumped off our chat right now, but we've got a guy over in Scotland who listens every week. And, it's the random people from overseas that sometimes get to me the most, because we think our drug laws here in the States are oppressive, but when you look at some of the countries like Japan or, the UK, well, not so much the UK anymore, but...
Right, but, we have a chapter in Indonesia, and I've spoken to our chapter leader there several times, and I just can't believe some of the things and the harsh drug laws that are going on over there. And we think we've got it bad. It's nothing compared to what they've got.
Yeah, Indonesia, you can get a death sentence for being a quote-unquote drug dealer. With cannabis. And the irony there is Indonesia is one of the countries where some of the original strains came from. And not only that, the people of Indonesia themselves consider it a holy weed. And oh God, I'm drawing a blank. One of the words for cannabis, chiba or something, came from Indonesia. And I don't think that's right, but one of the words. And that's the meaning of it, is holy weed. And these people are literally willing to die to partake, in cannabis. they see the benefits of it, and for them, it's just part of life. Like, okay, my government's crazy, but, you know, I'm going to take care of myself, and I'll deal with that later. So, yeah, the countries like that inspire the crap out of me.
Me too.
So I guess...
And, you know, when I start getting a little bit down and getting frustrated with the stupid marijuana laws in this country, I think about stuff like that. You know, the people over there that are literally dying over this weed, you know?
Sure. And just south of our border, 50,000 people in the last 4 years because of our drug war. More than 50,000. That's a very conservative estimate because that's really just along the border, and I don't think it counts all the deaths attributed to the drug war. But at least 50,000 in 4 years is absurd. You know,
I've seen the pictures of the freezers in the morgue just filling up.
Well, and I didn't get to it in my news, but Central America has now put together a coalition that wants to address the UN and tell the U.S. to quit being frickin' idiots and end the drug war. Because it's our appetite for all drugs, not just cannabis, that feed this war. And what really has to happen, and moms and all of us, I think, are on the same page, we've got to send the drug issue back to the health side of things. You know, I have doctors and scientists on all the time who will reiterate what I'm saying, that this is a health issue. This isn't a criminal issue. People on hard drugs, they're not criminals. They're just people with drug problems.
Right, and whatever happened to our personal liberties?
Absolutely.
You know, that's what gets me the worst, is that our Constitution is all about personal liberty, and I just want to know what happened to that.
And our government makes money, big money off pharmaceuticals, and there's no ingredients on your pharmaceutical bottles. Go home and read those, folks, or if you're at home, read those. The government does not tell you what they put in those.
For the pharmaceuticals that are all side effects. The whole commercial, they're listing side effect after side effect that include death.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have most of those diseases that those things treat, to be honest with you. I'll stick with cannabis and stick with staying healthy because of my concentrated dose. We got to run real quick.
Even in a state that doesn't give me the legal right, I'll still stick with my cannabis.
I was right there with you. And it takes people like you and Rebecca and people who aren't scared to speak out to get those laws changed. I copped out for health reasons and moved to a legal state where I could somewhat be safe. So keep up the great work, man. We're going to run. We're going to definitely talk to you guys again probably next week and then again after the rally, you know, to see how things went. But
and we need to get Sarah on next week.
Yes, please. Let's do that. I want to talk about the history of moms and go into that a little bit with her. So do me a favor real quick and give us your website.
Okay, we are www.momsformarijuana.com.
Absolutely.
You can find everything there you need, all our local chapters, and if there isn't a chapter in your area, contact us and start one.
And you don't have to be a mom. You can even be a dad.
That's right.
All right, ma'am. Well, we love you, and we'll talk to you soon. You guys keep up the great work, and if there's anything I can do in the next week, you got my phone number.
Thanks, Stickman. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. We're going to pay some bills one more time here because that's what keeps us going and keeps us here making radio. When I come back, I'm lucky enough to have my other half and her friend Tangi in from We Are Women Colorado. They've got a protest coming up here on October 6th in Denver at Civic Center Park. The last one was amazing. There were like 2,000 very powerful, strong, boisterous, loud females there, and I was a little intimidated. So I'll come back and be intimidated again. Stick with us. Peace.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
The Hemp Connoisseur is Colorado's premier guide to hemp culture. Our mission is to elevate the image of the medical cannabis and hemp industries to create widespread acceptance of the cannabis sativa plant. You can find the latest issue of the Hemp Connoisseur at more than 200 7-Elevens, your favorite dispensary, MMJ doctor offices, and tattered covered bookstores. Do you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur? Then come be a part of the Hemp Connoisseur's first Cannabis Championship. Visit us at thcmag.com for info on how to sample the best medicine Colorado has to offer.
Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com. Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the nation's premier infused product manufacturer, brings you the newest in hemp CBD wellness products, Dixie X. Derived from CBD for medicinal hemp, this non-psychoactive cannabinoid provides the medicinal effects of cannabis, but without the high. Join the Dixie X revolution today at www.dixiex.com. Or like us on Facebook, Dixie X or Dixie Elixirs.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
The law offices of Edson, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Okay. And we're back on Overgrow the Radio. We had no music because we like to keep people guessing. I'm echoey. I'm going to yodel for a minute. No, I'm kidding. Joining me now to end out the show is my other half, Meg Fossinger. She is the chair of We Are Women Colorado. Sorry, I had a mind lapse there. And from the leadership team of We Are Women Colorado, Tangi, and I'm not going to use your last name because that's the way we do it.
Personal. Yeah.
And you guys have a protest coming up. As I mentioned before, I actually had the pleasure of working security at your last event, which was super smooth, except for the one crazy guy with the sign, which I think we handled well. We kept our cool, and that was Meg's biggest concern. So tell us a little bit about what's going to play out that day, what time it is, who's speaking, the march, that type of thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so the march is going to be on Saturday, October 6th, from 1 to 5 p.m. From 1 to 3, we're going to have the rally. From 3 to 4, we'll have our march. And from 4 to 5, we're having a picnic, social time, gathering.
And, I mean, with that, do you guys... I'm always prepared when I go places. Should folks pack a lunch, because this does sound like a full day? Are there food vendors in the area? Are there restaurants? People coming down, should they come prepared maybe?
There's a lot of restaurants in the area, and if people, the 16th Street Mall is wonderful in Denver. If you want to bring a picnic, that'd be great. There's a big green grassy area. People can just get to know each other, talk about the things that are important to them.
Like women's rights.
Exactly, because they're human rights.
Absolutely. Well, iCannabis Radio is a little misleading because our station premise is civil rights. We just haven't gotten as far as branching out to anything else but cannabis yet. As you well know, it's a huge issue here in Colorado and across the country, and that's been our focus. That being said, we're always more than happy, and we want to encourage and promote anything we can that's civil rights related. But I want to digress for a minute because I've been trying forever to get Meg on, but I guess since she lives with me, it's not really possible. She has enough of me. So for our listeners out there, what is We Are Women? I mean, you guys haven't been around very long.
We haven't. We actually just formed earlier this year, and we are still in the process of getting our nonprofit status. So that's pretty exciting for us. And as many listeners, I'm sure, know, it is quite a process, but we're hoping to have that completed early next year. And We Are Women Colorado was really founded in response to some of the attacks that we've seen. We have everybody from Aiken saying, referring to victims of, as legitimate rape, and referring to women's bodies as magical vessels that can determine the difference between legitimate rape sperm and non-legitimate rape sperm, apparently.
And the body can just shut the whole thing down.
Absolutely. We have Rush Limbaugh, who calls women sluts for testifying in front of Congress. And, unfortunately, those attacks aren't limited to just those two. We see them across the board. Here in Colorado, we have a number of legislators that support personhood. And just in the last legislative session, they actually debated essentially a personhood amendment in Congress. And we were incredibly lucky that it was defeated. But as many people know, the personhood amendment, they put it up to the voters again in this November. Again, we were incredibly lucky and it didn't make the ballot, but they've promised they'll be back. And so this isn't a war that we can just say, oh, it's no big deal. This isn't a cause that we can just sit quietly by and ignore. We have to stand up and we have to fight for our rights.
And if they promise they'll be back, they'll be back. It's like our DUID bill every single time they get the chance. No matter how many times we tell them, hey, there's no science. Oh, yeah, we should take this off. They keep coming back. And you're right. It's mostly, and I hate to say it, right-wing idiocy that is promoting this war on women. And, I've had folks tell me there's no war on women. And, of course, I live with you, so I come to the defense of that. But it's amazing, just like cannabis, how many people out there aren't aware of the issues. I think, what I would ask, if you guys can real quick, I know we're almost out of time, and I want to get you guys back on. We're going to talk some more stuff. There's got to be points, though, that you want to bring up before we do run out of time. So I'm going to shut up and let you do that.
One of the things that we really want to announce is our speaker list, and I'm going to let Tangi have the honor of doing that.
Okay.
But we do have an we have an excellent list lined up, and we are really, really excited.
So first we have Nori Rost. She is from the All Souls Unitarian Universalist. Faith Winter, she is actually one of the councilwomen for Westminster, and she is also from an organization called Emerge. We have Tony Panetta from NARAL, Andrew Romanoff, who is the former Speaker of the House in Colorado, Dr. Claudia Folska. She is running to be a candidate for RTD, or she is a candidate for RTD for the board there. Joe McLosey, who is a current legislator, but he is also now running against Mr. Kaufman for his seat, and we fully support him in that.
And just to make a really quick note there, Kaufman is a supporter of personhood, and so it's really important that we...
for many reasons.
Get out the vote on that one.
Rhonda Fields and State Representative Crisanta Duran.
Very good. I'll just throw in a plug that last time, I'm sure again this time your speakers are going to be amazing. Last time you had so many legislators. I don't think I'd ever seen so many in one place, not even in session.
Yeah, they were great. And I should also mention, too, that we're going to have an amazing reggae band called Polyculture, the Raging Grannies, who are just incredible women speaking out for human rights and women's rights. Jen Rinaldi, who is an amazing poet. She's also a DPS English instructor. Susan Pfeiffer. Women helping others resist sexism and exploitation are going to have a flash mob dance that they'll be putting on and teaching to everybody, and then we'll incorporate that into the march as well. And let me just tell you, it rocks. It's an awesome dance.
Nice. I can't wait. I'm not a dancer, but I'll stand by the side and work security.
Okay.
So real quick before we run out of time, how do folks get a hold of you guys? Do you have a website, Facebook?
We do. Our website is We Are Women Colorado. I'm sorry, it's wearewomenco.org. Our email is wearewomenco@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook. Just look up We Are Women Colorado.
Absolutely. And I just have to say, Rush Limbaugh is probably not familiar with male birth control because we've all seen Rush. And we know looks aren't everything, but we've all heard Rush. We've all read what Rush has written. So I'm sure, to his defense, he needs to be educated.
I have some empathy for Rush. The other day I read an article, and he said on his show that male genitalia is shrinking as a result of what he refers to as feminazis. And so I'm a little curious about the scientific evidence that he has behind that, but I'm also a little empathetic towards him.
Well, I'll just end this segment by saying that I live with what Rush would classify a feminazi, so I guess I should better be. I'll be careful.
All right.
All right, ladies. Thank you so much for what you guys do.
So don't forget October 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
1
going
to
to let
5.
you say that again. But yeah, absolutely, everyone. Make sure you're down at Civic Center Park on October 6th, and if you can't be there, make sure 2 of your friends are there in your place. Again, civil rights are everyone's rights, whether it's women's rights, race issues, cannabis. We're all in this together. Again, thank you guys, you ladies, so much for being on tonight, and I look forward to getting you back on the show again.
All right. Thank you.
All right, real quick before we get out of here for the night, Sam, I've got to thank some sponsors because the sponsors are my family, and I love them like family. The Hemp Connoisseur Magazine and Nexus Meds are both great people. They combined to do a show here, but continue to sponsor my show and do a segment once a month. They'll be in the next couple of weeks. If you haven't read their magazine, you should definitely check out 7-Elevens and different head shops and smoke shops and dispensaries around the state and pick one up. Dixie Elixir, as you heard, they finally got in and did a bunch of commercials for us, so we've got them on the air telling you about their great new products, the CBD line, and I believe they're coming out with some Canna-Chew pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk to them next week. They'll be in for an hour segment this month. We have the pleasure, I think, of getting Tripp back in, so it should be interesting. Him and I are an interesting combination. We Grow Colorado. Drew was here a few minutes ago and taught us a little bit about hydro and dirt and the advantages and disadvantages of both. As I mention a lot when I go to dispensaries, his is one of the few I go to. We have the in-dispensary, to keep it on a dispensary theme. I'm saying a lot, Sam. You should correct me on that. The in-dispensary has a couple locations in the Springs, one on Platte and then out on West Colorado. So make sure to pop in and tell the Stanleys and their family and their workers hi, and definitely try some meds. I picked up some Critical Haze from there that was just amazing. Beautiful yellow hairs. Sam got to check that out before the show. The Realm of Caring is a branch off of that family. They do incredible things. They're getting oil to cancer patients for nothing. They don't survive and won't survive without the help of every dispensary in the state. If you're a dispensary making money and you can't donate a little bit of trim to the Realm, I got nothing for you. So make sure to check out therealmofcaring.com and do what you can, whether it's money, trim, however you can help. Let's get the sick people well. Green Monster Glass. Went out and visited my buddy Daryl the other day and enjoyed some of his homegrown patient-to-patient legal meds. And Green Monster Glass will absolutely stock your shelves for a reasonable price in your dispensary. Last but not least, oh, wait, I wrote someone down twice. Never mind. On that note, we're going to end our show. But again, I ran it in the beginning about unity. Guys, it's very important. We are human. We're all going to disagree. We're going to disagree until the day we die. We can be friends, best friends, partners, spouses, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, mothers, daughters. There's going to be those moments. It's those moments we have to get past and look at the bigger picture. And no matter what it is, a relationship, life, school, whatever the case may be. For activists, it's more than essential that we do this because without standing together, we're just these little tiny groups that are so easy to ignore. So again, hug it out and hold hands and let's move forward together. Until next time, Stay friendly and spread the love. Peace.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
The law offices of Edson, Maton, and Matz provide criminal defense, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running medical marijuana centers, optional premises cultivation operations, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout Colorado. With offices in Denver and Aspen, we can offer assistance throughout the entire state of Colorado. Give us a call at 303-831-8188. That's 303-831-8188. Or visit us online at warrenedson.com.
Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, the nation's premier infused product manufacturer, brings you the newest in hemp CBD wellness products, Dixie X. Derived from CBD for medicinal hemp, this non-psychoactive cannabinoid provides the medicinal effects of cannabis, but without the high. Join the Dixie X revolution today at www.dixiex.com. Or like us on Facebook, Dixie X or Dixie Elixirs. Dixie Elixirs, the patient's choice for alternative medical marijuana treatment, brings you Dixie Botanicals all-natural topical therapy, including massage oil, pain relief salve, and our newest product, Dixie Botanicals Pain Relief Lotion. This all-natural lotion pairs beautifully with Dixie Botanicals bath salt for a deeply relaxing experience with no psychotropic effect. Like us on Facebook, Dixie Elixirs, or join us at www.dixieelixirs.com.
The Hemp Connoisseur is Colorado's premier guide to hemp culture. Our mission is to elevate the image of the medical cannabis and hemp industries to create widespread acceptance of the cannabis sativa plant. You can find the latest issue of the Hemp Connoisseur at more than 200 7-Elevens, your favorite dispensary, MMJ doctor offices, and tattered covered bookstores. Do you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur? Then come be a part of the Hemp Connoisseur's first cannabis championship. Visit us at thcmag.com for info on how to sample the best medicine Colorado has to offer.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado, and remember,
always be kind to each other.